thank you for joining us for another episode of Lackawanna Pastimes. I'm Sarah Piccini, the Assistant Director at the Lackawanna Historical Society. I see many new faces here today that we're excited to have you join us. We do this every month. Lackawanna Pastimes is a monthly series. If you like what you see, you could find the other earlier episodes on our YouTube channel for the Lackawanna Historical Society. May is Jewish American Heritage Month, so we reached out to our friend Susie Connors, looking for someone who could speak to the importance and the commitment of the Jewish community in Scranton. So Susie was gracious enough to connect us to Seymour and Kathy Brotman, who were long involved with the Jewish Community Center. So we're excited to hear what they have to say about their time in Scranton and their impressions of the Jewish community in the city. To get started, I'd like to go over just a brief history of the Jewish community in Scranton and in the surrounding areas, and I'll turn the program over to Seymour and Kathy to share their memories. Scranton started out initially as went from a wilderness to an industrial boomtown in a relatively short period of time. The Scranton brothers, George and Selden, started to make iron in 1840 in what was known as Slocum Hollow at the time. From their ironworks, they began making railroad T-rail for the Erie Railroad and expanded into mining anthracite coal and creating their own railroad. They were their own best customers for both coal and railroads, but those three industries drew a lot of immigrants to the area. These immigrants came from all over the world, initially from England and Wales and Germany and Ireland, and then later followed by Eastern Europeans and Italians later in the century. By about 1900, Scranton went from very few people to about 100,000. The population would peak in the 1930s at around 150,000 people. There's a hugely diverse immigrant population in Scranton. Many of those immigrants brought their faith with them. There's a joke in the Lackawanna Valley about there being a church and a bar and a funeral home on every corner. Most of that is due to those immigrant groups. Early immigrant groups who were English and who were Presbyterian and Catholic, who wanted a priest who spoke their language. So there would be an Irish church and a German church and a Polish church. They were all Catholic churches, but they all had priests who spoke their own language. These immigrant groups, again, they brought their faith with them, and they maintained traditions from the old country, whether they're religious or secular, and carried on things that actually still carry on today in Scranton in the Lackawanna Valley, with traditions of either based on religious celebrations, a lot of different foodways, popular foods that were popular in the old country that have carried over. And Jewish settlers in Scranton were really no different from other groups as well. The first Jewish families settled again in the 1840s. They were among that early group of settlers, and set about establishing a temple congregation for worship. The city's Jewish community was small compared to the total population, but was an active group that left their mark on the city. At its peak, the Scranton Jewish community was estimated between 4,500 and 6,000 people in relation to the population. But in 1930, there were 14 different Jewish temples in Scranton, as well as temples serving Jewish communities in the neighboring boroughs of Dunmore, Oliphant, Jessup, and Dixon City. One of Scranton's two remaining Jewish congregations had its roots in that group of early pioneer settlers. Please forgive me again for pronouncing these names. I am not good at this. But the earliest members of the Shevda Rodif Shalom was the Brotherhood of the Pursuer of Peace congregation, arrived in the 1840s. And by August of 1860, the congregation was renamed and suggested the Congregation of the People of Loving Kindness. They originally met in a theater on Lackawanna Avenue. The group joined the American Reform Movement in 1880 and built a temple on Madison Avenue in 1902. In December of 1973, the current congregation's home on East Mountain, as Temple Hesed, was dedicated. Temple Israel was established in 1921 by a more conservative group hoping to establish a school to correct what they saw as the haphazard Jewish teaching in Scranton. They purchased and remodeled the former Calvary Baptist Church on Madison Avenue before dedicating their own temple in 1927. In 1945, Rabbi Arthur Book of Temple Israel wrote a dissertation about Scranton's Jewish community, noting that it was small enough that everyone counts, but large enough that no one counts too much. There were enough people to support a variety of organizations, but not too many that it became an insular, self-sustaining, closed society. Similarly, Scranton was close to larger Jewish communities in New York and Philadelphia but not quite so close. The city wasn't required to create their own community, life, and institutions, many of which became models for Jewish life and education across the country. Temple Israel became a laboratory for synagogue endeavor in many educational areas, with a dedicated audience showing almost 100% participation in their junior congregation and intermediate youth league, with active and popular Boy and Girl Scout troops as well. The Goose Pond Boy Scout camp that still exists started out from that group from Temple Israel. The Young Men's Hebrew Association was established in 1909 for the spiritual, physical, mental, and moral improvement of young Jewish men. Ladies Auxiliary was added in 1911, and the organization worked to teach new Jewish immigrants marketable skills like sewing classes, but also provide a home away from home for members of the Jewish community. The group's stately headquarters on Wyoming Avenue was dedicated in 1915 and included a library, community room, auditorium, and billiard room. A gymnasium was fully stocked with gymnastics equipment and also hosted intramural basketball games. In 1950, the YMHA became the Jewish Community Center and moved to a new location on Jefferson Avenue. The Jewish Federation of Scranton was chartered in 1917 to collect and distribute funds for educational and charitable purposes and to promote the moral and intellectual standards of the Jews in Scranton and throughout the wider community. After World War II, the Federation split into separate functions. The Jewish Federation held the role of fundraising and community allocation, while Jewish Family Services focused on educational service to strengthen family and community life. So, Seymour and Catherine, I think you have something to tell us about the Jewish Community Center and the Jewish Federation in Scranton. So, I will turn the program over to you if you'd like to share your stories. We will have time at the end for questions or any stories that anyone else would like to share as well.
Hey, thank you very much, Sharon, and I appreciate the invitation. My wife and I from the association that asked us to come today, and Susan Connors for recommending that we speak. I wish we could be there physically rather than a distance, but we're delighted in one way or another to be back with Scranton. So in response to some of the questions you kindly posed to me in preparing my remarks, let me begin by saying to all who are watching, who are there, who are not, good afternoon, and greetings to all my dear friends in Scranton, especially two people that we still maintain close contacts with, the Ginsbergs, Danny and Sandy Ginsberg, three actually, four, Alan Goldstein, and Rabbi Moshe Sachs. Also, good Shabbos this evening and forthcoming Shavuos in the next few days. The president of the Plainfield, New Jersey YMHA, where I had worked as the program director, informed me of a job opening in Scranton that was learned by her relatives, Herb and Shirley Barton, who lived there at the time. I also learned from Dan Ginsberg, with whom I attended social work school at Columbia University, that this was a good community as he had moved there a few years earlier. After two interviews led by Joe Hoden, Nat Levy, and Leo Sports, I was informed haircuts were only $1 in Scranton, and that I should understand that when asking for my salary. And that sealed the deal, knowing that was $1 for my haircut. We arrived in September 1970, and from the get-go, I found the community to be a wonderful, warm one. I had been asked for this discussion, what was the relationship between the Jewish Community Center, for which I was hired as executive director, and the Jewish Federation. The National Jewish Office, which arranged for my interview, cautioned that it might be a bit difficult coming to a community where a native Scrantonian was the dual executive for 35 years. They were right. And the relationship was somewhat strained, were it not for the support I had from prominent leaders, Henry Nogi, Nat Levy, and Leo Swartz, and many other leaders as well as community members who warmly welcomed us. They actually became friends and with some even family, resulting in a work and social life that was most fulfilling and enjoyable. It allowed And if time allowed, I would have mentioned some of the names, but that risked omissions. But gratefully, there were many who enriched our lives. Unfortunately, too many no longer with us. After 8 years, I became for 14 years the executive of both the Jewish Community Center and Federation, following the retirement of George Joel. However, when the job was again split, the new executive also had issues with the Federation. I am pleased, however, that I understand current relationships are harmonious and cooperative. Despite different personalities leading various organizations, we always joined together to assure services at home and abroad. As from the get-go, Scranton was a community of well-organized, financed, multi-service agencies led by amazing, dedicated professionals and volunteers for whom annual award dinners were conducted in various locations. At the Jewish Community Center, there was the Man and Woman of the Year, Young Leadership, Teen Awards, among others. Multiple committees existed for program planning, and never was there an absence of those eager to give of their time, skills, and money to assure success. The Jewish Community Center remains to this day open to all, irrespective of religion or financial ability. Programs were varied from Boy Scouts, nursery school, young children, teenage, adults, and senior adult programs led by paid and volunteer staff. We offered bowling, eventually replaced by a fitness center, men and women's health clubs, a snack bar. But when members began bringing their own sandwiches, ordering only a drink, we had to close it. A great sports program, including competition with teams of other centers, which was so meaningful for young people who might not have had a chance in their local schools. A swim team, frequently a champion, and day camp and family park in Daleville were a home for not only hundreds of children, but families that gathered at the park for joyous weekends of fun and friendship, led by our then and now late business director, Bill Bowen. We even had a mashgiach, or supervisor of kashrut, kosher food, Pearl Shaw, of blessed memory, to assure kashrut whenever food was served. The maintenance crew was very efficient and dedicated, along with our wonderful office staff, led by Bernice Ecker and Fran Kaufman. Particularly impressive, leading me to consider the Jewish community as a holy land, which I described to you, was its devotion to Jewish services, whether programming, service agencies, religious institutions, and to a great degree, Israel, resulting in frequent, well-attended missions tours of Jewish agencies, museums, and prominent guest speakers, including then Senator Joe Biden, Wolf Blitzer, and Abba Eban, often hosted in resident homes, which was a beautiful thing. The generosity of the community in providing for all these services was outstanding, especially for a small community that one year raised $1,700,000, not counting additional fundraisers for periodic emergency campaigns because of ongoing conflict in the Mideast. Every need, local, national, and overseas, was addressed, such as support for Israel, rescuing and welcoming Scranton Soviet Jews, including sit-ins at the Russian embassy in Washington and a rally in New York City, absorbing Ethiopian Jews in Israel and having a sister community in Israel, Ma'alot, with a visit one year from some of its residents. Working together with us was an outstanding and dedicated community division consisting of Christian leadership, with a Judaic chair in Scranton University, where we had very close and warm ties with its presidents, and local Catholic bishops, including John O'Connor, who went on to become the Archbishop of New York City and greeted us at the Soviet Jewry rally, and then Marywood University for many years hosted our Holocaust remembrance programs led by the nuns, survivors, and those who rescued them. What other small community, even mid-size, can boast of such service and mutual support? In addition was my role as representative of the Jewish community to also become active in the community. And I worked very closely with the then mayor and council of Scranton as chairman of community safety, providing lighting and security in our community, president of the United Way Agency's executives, public defender's liaison to the county prison, where I met weekly with prisoners, reader for the blind, visited to hospice patients, initiated the annual Toys for Tots program, chaired by Rosebud Levinson, and a public speaker for interfaith events and issues pertaining to Israel. Despite various religious observances such as Reform, Conservative, and Orthodox, we had the most dedicated and committed rabbis, Shoup, Poznansky, and Richmond, and Rabbi Fine is thankfully still active. We work together on behalf of so many needs and services as friendships between all of the religious groups cross lines. Holiday observances, especially Sukkah walks, at a time with the food cholent being served at various homes were memorable, as well as enabling exchanges of shalach manos, gift giving and food giving during Purim. There was no challenge that Scranton did not initiate, accept, and successfully meet. We were indeed special and remain so to this day despite population changes. Services were greatly enhanced when my wife, Kathy Brotman, who also served as program director for many years at the local day nursery association, came on board as campaign associate, chairman of Young Leadership Development and Missions to Israel, which he will discuss. She was succeeded by Fran Plotkin and now Dasi Gans. There were job opportunities I was encouraged to explore by the national office, but I did not feel I could have a better and more fulfilling life than remaining in Scranton, which was our adopted hometown. This feeling and commitment has also been demonstrated by an unusually long history of executives and rabbis remaining in Scranton for many years, thus strengthening it as a vibrant Jewish community where one wants to live and work. You don't want to go elsewhere. Life and activity continue to be productive with succession of leadership in the various agencies. Now Dan Kardanik at the Jewish Community Center and Daniel Chesvek of the Jewish Federation. We have returned for special events on 4 occasions, despite the distance, and maintain contact with many, especially in discussing international events, as well as having access to community events and programs through the media that we have never experienced in any community we lived in, either before or after we've left Scranton. We miss the spirit and the Judaic spirit of Scranton. They were special, and those memories are very dear to us. And therefore, we truly consider those years, 35 years, 29 in employment, as most fulfilling and the best of times. And now, Catherine, I leave to you.
Everyone refers to me as Kathy. When I met him, I was Catherine, and therefore I will always be Kathy.
I might add, we're married for going to be 68 years on June the 1st.
Another 2 days.
Oh my goodness, congratulations.
Thank you. Because she has 5 names. I knew her as Catherine. Her mother called her Kayla. She was living at the time of the singing star Kay Starr. Her maiden name is Starr, so her friends called her Kay. So this is my own Kay Starr. And then her sisters call her Katie, and she prefers Kathy. So there are 5 women I've lived with all these years, which explains 68 years of marriage. How can you miss out with 5 women?
God help us. Okay. I will now continue. What can I say? I am addressing dear friends and fellow Scrantonians. I want to thank you for inviting me to share my thoughts, feelings, and memories of my time in Scranton as a Jewish Federation's campaign associate. This followed many years of voluntary commitment to the United Jewish Appeal, the Jewish Community Center, Temple Israel, Jewish Family Service, United Way, and more. As I said, I was deeply committed to community service. There is a saying, no man can walk alone. No man is an island. Those of us who have assumed responsibilities of leadership learn very, very quickly that the success of any project is linked to the cooperation received from volunteers and staff. And I was blessed. I was blessed with a wonderful community of knowledgeable and dedicated volunteers whose vision of better lives for those we serve locally and overseas would be achieved by the millions we raised over the years in our annual United Jewish Appeal campaigns. The Women's Division, what can I tell you? They were led by the most dedicated and inspirational fundraisers. Many willingly offered home hospitality for our UJA and young leadership functions, often led by prominent speakers. One of our major fundraising projects, I'm smiling, was Super Sunday, where dozens of volunteers spent the day contacting local residents for their contributions, always responded to with generosity and gratitude for valuing their gifts regardless of the amount. To foster further identification with Israel, women were given the opportunity to avail themselves of 3 different recognitions. The silver pomegranate pin, beginning at $1,800, the Lion of Judah for $5,000 contributors, and then there was something called the Ketubat Emunim, was a handsomely framed, colorful covenant of our commitment to Israel for $2,500. He'll show you the pic. He'll show it to you soon. Let him show it, and then I'll continue. I don't know if you see this. Are you able to see the ketubah? Why don't you put it on the
Can't
chair?
see it. If you hold it in front of you, because all I'm getting is your background.
Well, it's a beautiful ketubah.
We'll take your word for it. Sorry.
Okay, significant funds were raised as women proudly wore their pin at numerous functions and displayed the ketubah in a prominent location in their homes. The one he was trying to show you is hanging on a wall in my room, the den. I am proudly the owner of the pomegranate pin, which I don't know if you can see it, but this is the pomegranate pin. It has 10 rubies in the middle. You really have to see. And also the ketubah, which I was surprised, it was surprisingly presented to me at a women's division home gathering by my husband. Others also gifted these tributes to family members. Young leadership, where do I begin? There's so much to say. We would meet each year, do you see these booklets? And we would plan programs, and the title was Building Leaders to Light Our Future, and I will get into that. Young leadership achieved so much, it is difficult to briefly describe. There was such enthusiasm and motivation enabling us to undertake missions to Israel, visits with our congressmen and senators in Washington and statewide, where we met with dignitaries on very high levels, trips to several Holocaust museums, attendance at the biannual Young Leadership Conference, and intensive visits with our local agencies to learn more of their services supported by our campaigns. We marched in New York and Washington for the freeing of Soviet Jewry. And when that was achieved, our community, in typical Scranton style, reached out in most meaningful ways, such as setting up newcomers in fully furnished apartments, financial funding, English lessons led by Naomi Alamo. Of course, a lot of us volunteered afterwards, demonstrating how to shop in stores, as well as synagogue membership. Our new neighbors became part of the Scranton family. Further, we visited Sephardic and Russian communities in Brooklyn and the Lower East Side of New York, including the Tenement Museum and the Eldridge Street Synagogue, where we donated towards its reconstruction. We donated many times. Thank God it's now finished. A momentous occasion was when we took 3 buses filled with parents and children to the Ellis Island when it reopened to the public. That was quite an undertaking, but fully appreciated. As much as we were involved with tours and missions, we celebrated local holidays marked by our well-attended annual Shabbat dinners with over 200 residents, adults and children, sponsored by Janice and Harris Cutler in memory of Jackie and Danny Cutler. Sukkot is my next one. Sukkot with tours of home sukkahs and Hanukkah home hospitality observances became annual holiday highlights eagerly anticipated. For most of our events, parents were encouraged to bring their children to help them experience their parents' commitment to our Jewish heritage. We were truly a remarkable Jewish community to be admired and to be envied. My great joy and pride were that so many of the young leadership of my time continued with their commitment to Scranton, serving in a variety of capacities on behalf of the Jewish Family Service, where Jim Alperin is about to be honored, Jewish Community Center of the Northeast Pennsylvania Jewish Federation, and local synagogues and chairmen. The title was Building Leaders to Light Our Future. They became the leaders of today. As Seymour referred to, we will always consider Scranton as our true home. With thanks for the memories and friendships, leadership, and activity, I want you to know, Scrantonians, you are forever in my thoughts and in my heart. That's it.
That was wonderful. Thank you very much. Thank you for sharing those stories. Sounded like you were right in the thick of the community and helping to shape and guide what was going on and what would come next. I'll open the program now. If anyone has any of their own memories or stories to share, or any questions for Seymour and Kathy. I have been muting people as we're going, so if you have anything to share, please unmute yourself first. But yeah, if anyone has anything else to share, please chime in. Anybody? We're overwhelmed. Okay. How about if I could put you on the spot, Daniel Ginsberg. I know we were talking at the beginning of the program that you were friends with the Brotmans before they came to Scranton. You were an early connection of theirs. Would you like to share anything about your early days in Scranton? And again, you are muted, so please unmute yourself first.
Seymour and I were friends since we were Columbia graduates, and we had some very nice experiences in community centers. We were group workers with clubs and all kinds of dances for teenagers. So Seymour and I have been working together for a long, long time, improving the lives of a lot of people who attended our Jewish community centers. So we're really proud working together, and we did a lot of good, I think, for the people of the communities.
Very good. Thank you. Does anyone else have anything to add or anything to share?
I will, of course.
Sure.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I'm Karen Davis Nash. And so my mom and dad, Herman and Millie Davis, were Scranton residents, and certainly being born in 1954, I went through the most wonderful childhood and adolescence with Jewish Community Center participation, Temple Israel, and I just started writing down all the activities that we were privileged to, and it fills up 2 full pages. Unbelievable. The junior congregation with Lewis Wolf, the Hebrew school, the nursery school at the JCC. Um, let's see, there was, of course, you mentioned the bowling, cheerleading, getting back to Daleville and Esther Birnbaum, and, just wonderful, wonderful memories. My Aunt Dorothy Goldstein was a nursery school teacher. My goodness, my dad, Herman Davis, supplied the choir robes for the junior congregation choir. It was amazing, just amazing. It filled up a complete auditorium on a weekly basis. with over, I would say, close to 200 students who attended every Saturday morning. So, I mean, what I do today living in Columbus is all thanks to what happened in Scranton. And we were married as well in Temple, Israel, with Rabbi Shoup. So it was, as my father said, he rode around the block a few times with my future husband in the back seat with me, so that we would recognize that like this was home base. And Temple, Israel has always been that way. My cousin Alan Goldstein, he's my first cousin, is continually involved. My sister Janie Pearlstein, my other cousin Rick Goldstein. So, I mean, these generational changes still leave us wanting to go back to Scranton and Temple Israel and the JCC. It was wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing. That's a wonderful, wonderful story.
Could I add something?
Sure, please do.
When she mentioned Herman,
We knew them.
when we first came to Scranton, the late, I think it was Marv Dinner, said to me, Scranton is a very busy community with many socials. We went to Temple Israel dances, to Temple Israel. You need to have a tuxedo.
Oh my goodness, that was my dad.
I got
That's
my
right.
tuxedo, which I still have,
Oh
and
my,
it still fits. I got
wow.
it from your father.
From B. Davis and Son in
So
Tamarack.
nice to meet you.
We
Oh,
have many
thank
more
you.
memories of the Davis.
You know, I do remember you as well, of course.
Yeah.
It's been many, many years, but
Yes,
how
it
how
is.
fortunate. Yeah. Thank you.
It goes
That's
back. It's now 55 years since we came to Scranton.
okay. Well, that makes my heart happy. Thank you so much. I will share that story.
Yeah.
Do
I
that.
still have that tuxedo. It's still good.
I bet it still has B. Davis and Son on the inside
It
also.
might. I'm gonna have to
Take a
check.
look. when we
That I could still fit in it. At one point I did, but then I lost weight and I could fit in it again.
Well, you both look wonderful.
Stacy.
They'll hear you because the microphone's on.
Was that the Betty Davis shop at Main Ave?
This is Deirdre Speltnell.
Yes.
Go ahead, Deirdre.
Get closed there too.
Who was speaking? I'm
I'm
sorry.
sorry. Go ahead,
I'm sorry,
Deirdre.
my camera's not working.
That's all right.
I'm one of the two Scranton natives, and I really enjoyed your presentation. I grew up in Scranton. I still live in Scranton. I've spent most of my 77 years as part of the Jewish community in Scranton. And I remember both when Seymour came and when Danny Ginsberg came to Scranton, as I was a young social worker. I was pleased to hear Seymour remember my Uncle Marvin Dinner. And many of you may remember my mother, Florence Spellman. I think some of my memories go back further, even to when the JCC day camp was at Chapman's Lake. And I had the privilege of going to the travel camp one year in the late 50s. And so I have lots of memories of, I grew up across the street from Oav Zedek. And remember Rabbi Guterman, after my father passed away, coming to visit us. Although I grew up in the Madison Avenue Temple and Temple Hesed. So it's nice to remember all those things about the Jewish community, because I had a wonderful childhood in Scranton, and still enjoy being part of the Jewish community. And many of you may know me as Cookie, which is my everyday name.
Everyone has a secret identity. I love it.
Ed Monsky, I just wanted to wish Seymour and Kathy well. I can't
Hi.
believe
Hi.
Mr. Monsky.
it's 68 years. That's crazy. You look and sound as good as ever. It's as if you've never left here. Annie and I particularly remember the Young Leadership Group, which was at its heyday when we were young marrieds and gave us an opportunity to meet people from all segments of the community, conservative, Orthodox, Reform, form many friendships. We're still very involved, and I think it's in part because of Seymour and Kathy, the Young Leadership Program, and I just wish you well for many years to come.
Thank you. It was our pleasure. And by the way, you haven't changed one bit.
Not at all. You look wonderful.
Not one.
I'm trying to
Your boy.
take after your lead.
How are your sons? How are they?
They're fine. As a matter of fact, my one son is good friends with Ross Goldstein, who's Ricky Goldstein's son. So the
Ah,
Scranton connection continues even in Philadelphia. So,
beautiful.
yes.
Okay, wonderful. Say hello. Say hello to Anne and to everyone.
Will
Thank
do.
you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Seymour and Kathy, it's Dave Hollander.
Oh my
wanted to
God,
say-
Dave, how are you?
I wish
How are
that
you?
he was here.
I wanted to thank you for your presentation, but I wanted to tell you my memories, of the JCC camp, but also hanging out with Jeffrey and just being at the JCC all the time. So these were great memories of growing up as a kid.
David, I can't tell you how proud we are of you. I remember you as a young teenager and that you become the president of the temple and doing what you're doing.
Wonderful.
I wish I was back.
So do I. I'm coming over.
Join us
Jeffrey
anytime.
refers to you very often. Jeffrey refers to you very often. Take care.
Well, if you don't mind indulging me for a quick moment, I want to thank Seymour very much. As the son of a director of a Jewish community center out here in Arizona, my mother was the director of the East Valley Jewish Community Center for 20 years. And I know all of the hard work, especially of a small community center, having to work with budgets and whatnot. I am actually going to be coming to Scranton in about a week and a half,
Wow.
a week now. To do a little bit of family history tracing. I've been using Ancestry and different things to try to find more out about my family history, which I always knew came through Scranton. So I just want to throw it out there. If any of you happen to know Ralph Simon, what I understand is he was a major member of Temple Israel, but if he were still alive today, it'd be 111. So he passed away about 30 years ago. So I'm, any family history with Simon families, Zukowski families, Greenfield families, or Blau families. If any of you knew something about that you could share, that would be wonderful. But I understand most of those families departed the area a while ago.
We knew them all. We
You
knew
knew-
them when they were active and they were involved.
You knew Ruby
was-
and Ann.
I'm sorry?
You knew I called him Ruby, my uncle Ruby.
Ruby Simon.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah,
yeah. And the A&R Sportswear out of Dunmore also.
right.
Do you have any particular memories?
Not really. Not really. Wasn't as much involved with them. I knew of them. But everyone in Scranton, somehow or other, we always saw each other because the attendance at all of these functions was always full. People were interested, they were committed. And the temples were filled. I remember during high holidays, it was difficult. If you didn't make advance reservations, you couldn't get a seat. It was that kind of time. If there was an event, if there was a gathering, a demonstration, there was an interest in doing it. We didn't have to drag people. People wanted to be there. It was an involved community, a committed community, and a creative community. And that's what made it so memorable and so wonderful to work in, where you didn't have to drag or beg or cajole. They forced you to want to do more. And it was energizing to be in Scranton.
I hope
And
you
what
find the
happened to
information.
what happened to the Linden Street Synagogue? That's where my grandfather was bar mitzvahed.
That I'm not familiar with.
Okay.
I'm not.
Okay.
It's before my time. I came there in 1970.
Yeah, that would have definitely been before.
Yeah.
Can I add some things? It's David Falk, and some of my memories go back to before when Seymour and Kathy got here. Throughout, there were Jewish communities scattered throughout Lackawanna County, from Carbondale, Oliphant, Dixon City, Jessup, and then down the line, Taylor and Old Forge. Karen would know a lot about Taylor. But things started kind of, people started moving more into the city of Scranton. Although I believe the original Jewish community was in Providence. There's a large Jewish cemetery
Yes.
up there.
Yeah.
But there were different areas. And for instance, the Flats had a couple of synagogues. The big one later became Beth Shalom congregation. And that community kind of got wiped out during the flood of ’55 because it was located between the Lackawanna River and Roaring Brook. So people tended to move in, and they moved up towards the hill section. And there were two synagogues in downtown, one on Linden Street, one on Penn Avenue. Matter of fact, one of the Orthodox synagogues for a while was known as Penn Monroe. And there was redevelopment that occurred in that area of Scranton. So those buildings got torn down eventually. But about the time, or a little bit before the time that Seymour and Kathy got here, I would say that the Jewish community became concentrated in the hill section. And that made getting together a lot easier. By the time I think Seymour and Kathy left, a lot of the congregation had migrated, a lot of the Jewish community had migrated into the suburbs, into the Abingtons and into Moscow and things. But the numbers of people that were in the hill section, it was very easy to get to the synagogues, and you could walk to most of them. And so if you're talking about history, those things I just wanted to mention about that. And still, I think a lot of the families who came from outside of the city itself still have familial connections or friendship connections from where they came from.
Very good. Thank you.
I remember when I came to Scranton, there was an occasion we used to offer films, Yiddish films for senior adults. And it was January and it was snowing. And I said, nobody's going to come because we lived on a hill. I said, the seniors especially are not going to come down. Well, they paid 50 cents. And I have to tell you, sliding and skidding, we had a full auditorium. The people wanted to be there. There was that kind of response to anything that was done. And that was invigorating because whatever you did, you didn't have to drag anybody. They wanted to be there.
And they were,
Even in a snowstorm, they came.
they paid 50 cents.
They paid 50 cents. They were going to see that movie.
That's a dedicated crowd.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Does anyone else have anything else to add before we wrap up here?
I'd just like the opportunity to say hello.
Oh, hi. Hi,
Hi, Seymour and
hi,
Kathy.
Sheila.
How are you?
Good.
You guys look great, and just want to thank you for sharing everything today and for everything you did for the Scranton community and beyond.
And I have to thank you for remaining there in the capacity that you hold. How many years are you director now?
I'm not going to say it out loud.
All right, don't. But, I mean, that you have given of yourself. When you first started, you were an assistant, I believe, there. And
I
then
was
you
a
became
social worker, and then
and
we
you
were
became
much
the
smaller.
director, and you're still there. You're another one of those, when you come, you don't leave. There were, and I think it's a tribute to Scranton as well as to the kind of people who work there. Your dedication has made such a difference in the life of so many people over the years. You should be very proud of what you accomplished in your lifetime.
Thank you.
Yasha Koa.
You as well.
Thank you.
Okay, again, Seymour and Kathy, thank you so much for joining us and for sharing your stories. It seems you left a memorable impact on the lives of many, many people in Scranton who still remember you fondly as they've moved on in their lives. Again, Susie, thank you again for making the connection. Thank you to everyone who joined us today. Our next program for Lackawanna Pastimes, the end of June, we're working with our partners at the Waverly Community House, talking about the Scranton Lace Archives. This is a collection that was part of the Historical Society's collection that we recently transferred to the care of the Waverly Community House. Looking at personnel records, objects, other items in the collection. There's a spotlight of a different local history collection that you could find in the region. That'll be our next program in June. So again, everyone, thank you very much for joining us and have a great day.